This year has been tough for Indiana farmers. Heavy rain and flooding has saturated the soil, making it impossible to plant crops. And that's on top of Trump's trade war. In 2017, Indiana farmers exported over $1 billion of crops, like soybeans and grains, to China. A year later, that dropped by 78%. And now Trump just bailed out farmers for the second time in 6 months. When you think about the previous aid package and then $16 billion now, does that signal to farmers that Trump is good for farming?
I mean, you could put a monkey in charge and he can write checks.
I have directed Secretary Perdue to provide $16 billion in assistance to America's farmers and ranchers. China has openly stated they're going to use the farmer. The reason is because I got the farmers' votes. You look at a map, it's all red, meaning Republican, meaning Trump.
So when you hear the president talking about $16 billion in aid, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Crumbs on the floor, food stamps, welfare.
I don't know. You don't like any of those things?
No. I mean, as a farmer, we want to be independent, and the perception of the public, it doesn't look good. We feel like, we don't need it.
So the trade war may have complicated things, but also Mother Nature hasn't been cooperating with you guys, right?
We can't get a crop in the ground. We've had above average rainfall starting with a hurricane last September, and we just have not dried out. I saw a stat that the United States has had the most rainfall ever in the last 8 months.
With all the uncertainty around weather and global trade, Malk set aside a large part of his farm to develop innovative farming methods.
We're all trying to work the best with what we have, but it's different than it was 25 years ago. But I think that a lot of our policies are just trying to preserve and protect old ways instead of letting innovation.
How you doing? My name is Antonio. My page is Unapologetically Black ADOS. On YouTube, I ask that you like and subscribe to the page. Understand, because Donald Trump led off his campaign using racism, white farmers did not require any political policy for Trump to gain their support. This is why this white man voted for Donald Trump, whose policies are about to strip him of his grandfather's life work, because he was led by racism. Donald Trump amped off his campaign with birther rhythm attacking Obama. That motivation and hatred for blacks motivated white people to go to the polls and vote for this multiple time bankrupt candidate.
Washington, Iowa. Here at the Iowa State Fair, he has a Farmers for Trump hat on. First, I want to talk about the 2024 election. Why do you support former President Donald Trump?
Well, I want a president that's going to stand up for America. He's going to stand up for our rights as citizens and make sure that we have good trade around the world and we can get our farm products that we're raising here in the United States shipped around the world.
You did say you were a farmer. How do you think he will help farmers the most?
Well, I think that a lot of the things he did with China on the getting the fair trade back, because they were taking a lot of our intellectual property whenever we were selling products to them. We had to give them how we did everything. He straightened the trade out with Mexico and Canada. He just made the deals a lot better. That were a lot more not in our favor, but fair for both countries to be dealing with.
Trump has so successfully limited where his supporters gain their information from. They can be led in any direction he chooses to lead them, regardless of facts.
Mechanics at work. But essentially, the president's tariffs have led to retaliatory action, especially by Mexico and China. I saw, for example, Mexico now has a 25% tariff on American cheese coming out. So what is this doing exactly right now for your farmers?
Well, the tariffs are creating some real problems. We were looking at better prices the second half of this year. For the first time in the 4-year period of tough prices, farmers were looking forward to the second half of 2018 to get back into the kind of prices we need to survive. And when the tariffs were announced at the end of May, we saw the futures market, which is used by a lot of farmers to hedge price risk. We saw the futures markets collapse. They dropped a total of $1.8 billion value out of futures markets just for the second half of 2018, from July through the end of the year.
This shows clear correlation between Trump policies and the heartaches that American farmers felt while he was in office, but you see how they continually ignore this. They ignore their own reality because hate is more motivating than their own reality. It's easier to blame it on black people than to blame it on Donald Trump, whose policies created your hardship, collapsed your market. But it's easier to hate Black Lives Matter. It's easy for that. And this is why he draws people attention towards racism, because it draws people attention away from the fact that Donald Trump has no real policy.
But after 6 months of retaliatory tariffs, many farmers are still feeling the impact. Lisa Desjardins takes a look at one of the sectors hit hardest by the trade conflict.
Are quick to tell black people to get out of government handouts, ignoring all of the government handouts that white people get. See, when government policies hinder their success, they expect the government to pay them for the damages caused by government policy. But black people have not been paid for the government policies of enslaving black people, Jim Crow, for allowing the black communities to be burnt down during the Red Summer, or for them allowing the black farms to be taken. None of the policies, the Fair Housing Act, where they discriminated or didn't allow black communities' homes to be insured by redlining. See, but they're not supposed to pay us for our damages caused by policies created by America, but Europeans are paid damages for negative policies that impact them. So when you hear black people talking this, black people need to get off government welfare, I really need y'all to shut the fuck up, because you really don't know what the fuck you talking about when it comes to how this economy is really ran.
80 years.
My grandpa spent his entire life paying for each one of these silos, paying for tractors, paying for land. There's a big part of that is we just don't want to change. So we just want a president that comes in that allows us to keep doing what we've always done, because I've done this for so long, and by golly, that's what I do.
Clear, 80 years is prior civil rights movement. Civil rights laws being passed. Your grandfather had access and opportunities that black people was denied 80 years ago. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget the fact that your grandfather was allowed and given government-backed loans to build these buildings in order to operate his business, that black people was denied. See, when we talk about reparations, you have to understand how much of a head start they had, and how much that head start benefits you when you have resources and the other individuals is just striving to maintain basic resources for survival. And this is how they maintain their supremacy from prior Jim Crow. So when you hear black people tell you to get off that government handout And black people need to get out expecting the government to do something for them. When we talk about reparations, you're talking about people who don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to economics.
This year has been tough for Indiana farmers. Heavy rain and flooding has saturated the soil, making it impossible to plant crops. And that's on top of Trump's trade war. In 2017, Indiana farmers exported over $1 billion of crops, like soybeans and grains, to China. A year later, that dropped by 78%. And now Trump just bailed out farmers for the second time in 6 months. When you think about the previous aid package and then $16 billion now, does that signal to farmers that Trump is good for farming?
I mean, you could put a monkey in charge and he can write checks.
I have directed Secretary Perdue to provide $16 billion in assistance to America's farmers and ranchers. China has openly stated they're going to use the farmer. The reason is because I got the farmers' votes. You look at a map, it's all red, meaning Republican, meaning Trump.
So when you hear the president talking about $16 billion in aid, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Crumbs on the floor, food stamps, welfare.
I don't know. You don't like any of those things?
No. I mean, as a farmer, we want to be independent, and the perception of the public, it doesn't look good.
However, white farmers accepted this welfare. They accepted this handout that black farmers was actually denied. And the same applies to black people that applies to the whites. Republicans are used as the boogeyman by the Democrats in order to maintain our support with the Democrats and get us to buy into voting for Joe Biden. Meanwhile, Trump bailed out the white farmers. The white farmers fought to prevent the black farmers from getting a bailout.
The Biden administration to court this week over a $4 billion promise that never came to pass. The farmers say that the federal government broke its promise to help farmers of color get out of debt as part of the American Rescue Plan. But of course, angry white farmers held up the program in court for more than a year, and ultimately Congress watered down the program, leaving black farmers even deeper in debt while dealing with these soaring costs.
The reason why Biden did not follow through on providing black farmers with the aid needed to build their farms is because he didn't have to. You're going to vote for Biden anyway because Trump is the boogeyman. Because Trump is a blatant racist and they know you have no other option. As you see, the white farmers who support Donald Trump was opposed to black farmers receiving their funding as if it's coming out of their pocket. But you do not hear of the same issue with white farmers saying they was not giving their proper funding during the Trump administration. So make no mistake about it, Trump has clearly decided to empower white supremacists and deprive blacks of those same resources. Biden has also decided he is willing to appease white supremacists and empower white supremacists and deny blacks those same resources at the same time. This is why I suggest blacks vote Democrat down. Do not vote for Biden for president. Demand they primary Biden. Stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Stop allowing them to make you choose. I'm not finna vote and empower Trump. I'm not finna vote and empower Biden. I will vote and write.
Getting loans to keep their farms up and running. The Biden administration, however, made a push to provide debt relief to farmers of color. But more than 2 years later, many of the intended recipients are still waiting for relief. So in tonight's Prime Focus, ABC's Rachel Scott takes a look at why black farmers aren't getting the help they need. It's the latest installment of her series, Through the Cracks.